Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Leeds series. The city of Leeds is one of the 5 metropolitan boroughs of West Yorkshire. 38 civil parishes lie within its boundaries. Which slice of the city are we seeing today? Okay, today in Leeds we're starting with something of a boundary anomaly. Behind me you can see a school. That there is Bramham Primary School. But it doesn't actually fall within the parish of Bramham cum Oglethorpe. It belongs to the next one to the north because the boundary is literally just there. Where my car is, it runs along here, which means it's actually in the parish of Clifford. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Clifford is a small village in West Yorkshire, situated just to the north of Bramham and some 3 miles south of Wetherby. Our walk begins at the south of the village. Straight away we've got landmarks to look at. This stone structure on Bramham Road houses the old village well, reputedly used as a source of baptismal waters for St Luke's Church. It's built on a spring. St Luke's Church, by the way, is associated with a lot of things in Clifford, including this building opposite the well. This was a school and a religious hostel. Founded by Reverend Luthwaite, he gave the hostel to the Roman Catholics for use as a convent. It would later become a girls' school and then Northway's residential school. In front of Nunnery House and on the corner of Willow Lane and the High Street is a rough-hewn cross on a boulder. This is the village's war memorial and 28 names are listed on it. Handily, Clifford has an information board which will tell you all the bits of history that this video won't necessarily cover. This stands on the site of the former village pump. The village has some good transport links. The A1M motorway is just over a mile to the west, and bus services link it to Tadcaster, Leeds, Harrogate, Wetherby and Wakefield. So now we're heading into the main village via Willow Lane. This is a circular route which will end up back at the convent later before finishing at St Luke's Church. It's not long before we hit our first historic landmark up here. This is the old school which was established in the 1700s. There's a blue plaque on the wall which tells us a little about it. It was used as a Sunday school attached to St Luke's, and interestingly it's also been used as a Yorkshire penny bank, a garage and as a parish meeting room. This next section is very residential, so here's some history as we walk. The name Clifford is first attested in the Domesday Book. It comes from Old English. It literally means ford at the bank or cliff. This perhaps referred to the crossing of the River Wharfe at Boston Spa, which was then within the manor, and it was held by a man named Ligulf. In the Middle Ages, Clifford was a subordinate settlement to Bramham and had no parish church or manor house. It used to be a township in the old parish of Bramham in the upper division of the wapentake of Barkston Ash, and it formed a part of the Old West Riding of Yorkshire. It became a separate civil parish in 1866 as Clifton with Boston, which was split into the civil parishes of Clifford and Boston Spa in 1896, the latter now the much bigger settlement. The area we're in here is the much more modern part of Clifford. The older historic core, which is a designated conservation area, is based around the High Street and Old Mill Lane. Our route will head down towards that area again, but first we've got a pub to see, and this footpath will take us from Moore Avenue to Barkston Road, and it will come out alongside it. This passes a field which is strictly private property according to the signs. Anyone who trespasses on this is liable to a £20 fine. That's certainly a well-trodden path. I met a few dog walkers while I was walking down there. It's brought us to the Albion, which is one of the pubs here in Clifford. Now, I'm not sure if this is actually open at the moment because there are two signs which kind of tell me it's not. There's one here that says fantastic business opportunity and one here that says could you run this pub? Let me know, guys, is this one actually open for business at the moment or not? A walk down Chapel Lane is next. This is the junction with Albion Street, which is where things like the village hall and the local chippy are located. The route will come back to this area shortly. Chapel Lane may be named as such, but there's no chapel on it anymore. There used to be though, as it stood where the tower of one of Clifford's churches now is. The chapel in question was the original Wesleyan Methodist Chapel, which was founded in 1796. These days, a much more modern chapel exists on Churchview Mews. So let's see where it was. Clifford has three churches. This one, built by the Roman Catholics, is St Edward King and Confessor Catholic Church. This served a particular population of Clifford. As we'll see as we journey further around the route, Clifford had a high population of Irish migrants that came to work here. The Grimston, Clifford and Vavasor families all contributed to the cost of building the church. I thought it a very unusual design, with an open stone arch supporting the tower. The arches here are certainly an interesting piece of architecture. Now, while we're talking about architecture, if I turn the camera around at this point, opposite the church, there's a tower, a castellated tower. Now, I can't see much of it for obvious reasons because it's behind this sort of wall, but yeah, there it is. Let's talk a bit about that next. This tower can be described as both embattled or castellated. It's really nothing more than an outbuilding in a private garden on the high street. However, historically it's believed it might have been an observatory. That's according to an 1887 conveyance as described on the village's information board. Now we're going down Old Mill Lane, and as the name suggests, there were mills here. It was arguably Clifford's largest industry at one point. Some of the mill buildings still stand. Clifford was originally a farming community, but in 1831, corn mills powered by Bramham Beck on Old Mill Lane were transformed into flax mills, making patent yarn and shoe thread. The mills were owned by the Grimston brothers. At its height, the business employed about 300 workers, and some of them were the aforementioned Irish immigrants. Many of the workers lived in the stone terraced cottages in the village. Check this out, part of one of the mill wheels can still be seen from the road. Okay, pretty much done with Old Mill Lane there. Now it's time to go up Springfield, which will take us towards the centre of the village next. Next we have Springfield, which links Old Mill Lane to the High Street. This is again a newer area of the village. Many of Clifford's older buildings are built of magnesian limestone. All new build construction within the central conservation area must use the locally quarried limestone so that it's in keeping with the older properties and doesn't look out of place. I can squeeze in a brief word for Clifford Moor here too. The Pilgrimage of Grace in 1536 and the Rising of the North in 1569 are two historic events linked to the area, as is horse racing as far back as 1684. Here's the second pub, the Old Star Inn, owned and operated by Samuel Smith's old brewery. Next, after walking up Churchview Mews, is the current Methodist Chapel, which dates from 1855. Clifford also once had Quakers as well. Their meeting house is believed to have been off Willow Lane. Churchview Mews links to Nursery Way, the street in Shot here, via a small gate. That's where I ended up going, but originally that wasn't the plan. Okay, so my route's hit a bit of a snag. There's supposed to be a footpath here, and as you can see, it is a footpath down the side of the Methodist church, but it doesn't end in a gate as I thought it did. I'm supposed to be going through there and up that street, but I may have to change my plans now. Either way, all roads lead to Rome, or in this case, to Albion Street, because both this and the road I was trying to get to, Albion Terrace, lead to it. One thing Clifford is noted for would be a beer festival, which first took place in 2010. Due to its popularity, it's become an annual event. It's events like that which are held here at the Village Hall, described as a small venue for concerts and plays. It's also got a large playground at the rear. On the wall is the parish notice board keeping the community up to date. Clifford also has a monthly magazine, The Outlook, that's delivered free to every resident. This bench may be a little faded now, but this was placed here for the Diamond Jubilee of our current Queen Elizabeth II in 2012. The route continues down Albion Street back towards the High Street. This is where we'll pass a lot more of the old stone terraces within the village's conservation area. Always a staple of good village life is a good chippy, and Clifford's got one. Clifford Fisheries right here. It's in a building that's not as historic as the one we saw in Shadwell, but I bet you the fish and chips from there are just as good. Clifford Fisheries is the only business in the village as far as I could tell. The houses you're looking at here, however, used to be the post office. Almost directly opposite those on the High Street is the modern day post box. Clifford still retains one of these at least, but the nearest post office is in Boston Spa. It's worth mentioning as well, the Albion and the Old Star Inn aren't the only pubs that Clifford has ever had. There used to be 4 more: the Bay Horse, the Rose and Shamrock, the Green Dragon and the Greyhound. And that leaves us with one thing left to see on the main walk, and that would be the one remaining church, St Luke's, which was built in 1840. This is on high ground at the western end of the village. Built in the Gothic style, it was consecrated by the Archbishop of York in 1842. The church cost £1,200, raised by subscription, and the site was donated by George Lane Fox. It no longer has pinnacles on the tower. These were removed in 1905, according to the village's information board. Okay, that's the main walk around Clifford. I'm just literally a few yards away from my car, which is parked in Nunnery Way, next to the old convent. That means you guys need a picture bit. I'm not sure what I'm going to put in this one, because where I'm going to end this video in a few moments time is really the only thing I can think of offhand that I haven't covered in this one. So let's see what I found for you. Okay, so this video began outside a school, it's going to finish outside a school, and that is the school in question right behind me. And that's not just any old school, it's a Roman Catholic school, and it's also for the deaf. There are 3 schools in Clifford Parish. We began at Bramham Primary School, and as we've just seen in the picture bit, Boston Spa School falls just within the boundaries as well. The third is St John's Catholic School for the Deaf. It provides both a day and boarding education for deaf and hard of hearing children and young people. This has links to Sheffield. It was originally founded in the Handsworth area of the city by influential Belgian priest Monsignor de Haan in 1870. While not the school's official name, it's often referred to by past pupils and the deaf community as Boston Spa, because that is much easier to lip read. And there you have it, that's been the parish of Clifford. Now, generally speaking, this has been a very flat route. It's been quite nice. I've walked about 3.5 kilometres, haven't really broken sweat. It's a different story though in the next couple of episodes you'll see in Leeds, because there are some hills that come into play. So I'd better steel myself and get ready for those. This has been the parish of Clifford, and I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.